So welcome back to Come and See Inspirations here on West Limerick 102 and on our podcast on all good stations, as they say. My name is Shane Ambrose. Delighted that you're with us this week on the podcast. Now, we're about to share with our listeners an interview we did with Bishop Brendan Leahy. Now, the interview was done earlier in the year because this weekend in Rome, Pope Leo is going to canonize two young Italian laymen who will be the first saints canonized by the new Pope. One of them is Carlo Acutis, and the other one is Pier Giorgio Frassati. Now, Carlo was supposed to have been canonized in April by Pope Francis before he died, but obviously Pope Francis died, so the canonization was postponed. And so on this week's interview with Bishop Leahy, he takes us through who Carlo is and the message that Carlo has as a witness for the faith in the 21st century, because that's what saints are. They're not, people on a cloud somewhere or locked up in a monastery. Ordinary men and women who provide examples for us to live our lives. But Carlo and Pier Giorgio are both going to be canonized this weekend. Carlo is a teenager known for his devotion to the Eucharist and creating an online exhibition of Eucharistic miracles, originally scheduled for April the 27th. He was born in 1991 and he died of leukemia in 2006 at the age of 15. Pier Giorgio Frassati was born in 1901 into a prominent family in Turin in Italy. A member of the Dominican Third Order, he served the sick through the Vincent de Paul, and he died at the age of 24 after contracting polio, possibly from one of the people that he assisted. And it's interesting because actually Pier Giorgio Frassati was one of the saints who was in Rome during the Jubilee of Youth there in August, and they brought his body down from Turin. And it's interesting because he's actually one of the incorruptibles, John. His body still actually hasn't decayed. So it'll be interesting to see just the ceremony is on Sunday, or today, Sunday. So it will be, I'm not sure if it's going to be broadcast on the Irish television or not. But as I said, our interview this morning is with Bishop Brendan Leahy, who's going to tell us a bit more about how he sees Carlo Acutis and the message and the example that Carlo has for us in the 21st century.
Bishop Brendan has published a book entitled In Conversation with St. Carlo Acutis. You're very welcome, Bishop Brendan. Thanks a lot indeed for joining us again.
Thank you very much, John.
So, Bishop Brendan, what prompted you to write about Carlo Acutis?
Well, first and foremost, of course, he's a wonderful young man and it's worth knowing something about. The immediate suggestion came to me from Bishop Fintan Gavin of Cork that I should write something about this. I read the wonderful book written by Carlo Acutis' mother, which is really a fantastic book about Carlo. Yes. So in one sense, I thought everything is done. But then I hit on an idea that perhaps I could imagine a conversation with Carlo Acutis that would help readers enter into a direct conversation, a chat with him, asking him questions, hearing his viewpoints, hearing his answers. So that's really how it came about.
So your book, is said, it includes a conversation with Carlo from his birth in London in 1991 and his death in Italy in 2006 at the age of 15. So can you share some of the thoughts and events that you pursued when you're writing the book?
Okay, it's a short life. He died 15, as you say, and nevertheless, on the one hand, there's an ordinariness about his life. He was an all-rounder. He was big into sport, AC Milan, a big fan of soccer, but also he was a great musician. He had friends. He lived an ordinary life in one sense. But of course, that's the whole point, I suppose, about a saint. When you look back over his life, you realise there was something extraordinary about it. Even as a young boy growing up, he moved very quickly from London back to Milan as a baby. And growing up in Milan, he had a Polish minder. And she was a person who I would say was very significant because she was the one who taught him the rosary, brought him to Mass, because his parents weren't particularly religious. His father maybe slightly more, but initially his mother wasn't at all religious. She said she had only been to church 3 times in her life: her baptism, her first communion, and her marriage. So Carlo grew up on that kind of environment, but his minder brought him as well to one of the famous shrines in Italy, Our Lady of Pompeii. And in a way, he dedicated his life to Mary, even though he was only 5 at that stage. Then when he made his first communion at the age of 7, at that time in Italy, that was very unusual, but he was given special permission. He wrote something quite amazing. He said, I want to make being close to Jesus the program of my life, which is an incredible thing for a young fellow to say. He decided that day he would always go to Mass, and he brought his mother and grandmother along with him. Of course, the mother hadn't been to church, but she started going because, of course, he wanted to go. And it was through that the mother herself then began a journey of returning to faith. So that was it. I mean, an ordinary boy, but the little things like he'd see an elderly woman needing to carry heavy groceries from the shop. He'd go over and help her. There were some poor homeless people outside the church. He'd a little piggy bank at home, and he'd go off and he'd empty out the piggy bank and get the money to be given so that food could be bought for them. There was a soup kitchen run by the Capuchins in the town. He went off and helped them. The Mother Teresa sisters were around helping and welcoming migrants. So off he went to them. So there was a great generosity in him. That's very clear. But he was at school, he had his friends. Some of his friends had ups and downs, moments of difficulty. He befriended them, tried to help them. But I don't think they would have said necessarily anything extraordinary about him in one way. But it was all of that together. I think when he died, they realised, yes, someone special has passed by us in life.
No, I was just thinking that as you recounted there, first of all, he come from a fairly well-to-do family too, didn't he? I mean, it wasn't as though he was...
That is very true. His father was an extremely successful businessman. In fact, he owns his family owned the largest insurance company in Italy, so very well to do. And his mother, too, came from a very prestigious publishing company. So, yes, they were quite well to do. He was an only child. And, of course, that also explains the fact that he had, in a certain sense, to be creative about life. He had to make up things to do, hobbies, and all of that gave him time as well, for instance, to become an expert in computers. When he was only 9, he actually learned how to do computer programming, quite extraordinary stuff that you'd normally learn at university. He was doing as a young lad. And of course, he brought all that to bear then when he was about 11 or 12 years of age. He said he'd have loved to travel the world and go to these places which were associated with Eucharistic miracles. And he realised, of course, he couldn't travel. He was a young boy, even though he did go travelling with his family to a lot of places. They went to France, they went to Spain. But he had the idea, he hit on the idea that he could research these places and put together a website. And that's what he did. And it's extraordinary. In the website, 150 web pages to do with different shrines. And it was very popular, still is being used in some schools. And that's something he's particularly famous for. But in a certain sense, it was him being creative, using his computer skills, which he had, for a good purpose.
Tell me, how did he get on with other teenagers?
As I say, he had friends. He got on well at school. He was reasonably bright. And some of his friends confided in him. You know, they were moving into teenage years. And he did acknowledge that sometimes in teenage years, obviously, people get into all kinds of situations, and he acknowledged that in some cases some of his friends confided in him about negative experiences that had happened to them, and he tried to, befriend them in that and help them. As I say, he had his inquisitive mind, so I think that helped as well in his being creative, in helping friends and being with friends. Of course, he recognized it was important to be truthful. And, there can be terrible peer pressure, as we know. But he was a kind of a leader in the sense that he stood up for what he believed, which in his case also meant, his faith, believing in God, going to church, issues to do with the moral life, abortion. He was prepared to give his view on that. Not necessarily that he hammered people over the head with these views, but he offered them and gave them as truth, which he was trying to live. And I think he was greatly respected for that.
And do you think that Carlo has something to teach other young people? Well, not maybe young, but maybe of our own age, you know?
Yeah, I think he has something to teach everybody in a way. Obviously, young people will relate to him, but everybody can be, taking on board some of his teachings, because I think that's a remarkable feature of him. He wrote things on his computer, and when he died, they discovered some of the things he wrote. They were on the computer, and they were deep things about like how to keep your soul beautiful. What is it that's going to make you free in life? How should you use time? He had a great sense of time, that time is a gift given to us by God, and we need to be careful how we use it. How do we face death? What's the most important thing in life for us? And then particularly beautiful things about the Eucharist. Famously, he talks about the Eucharist as our highway to heaven. And he said, like, just as the apostles met Jesus 2,000 years ago, we've got to believe that Jesus did find a way for us to encounter Jesus today. And that is the Eucharist. He said, we've got Jerusalem outside our door. All you have to do is go to the local church. That was the way he put it. So he had a very strong sense of the presence of Jesus in our world, in particular in the Eucharist at Mass, but even also in terms of the importance of going before the tabernacle, before Jesus in the Eucharist, in the tabernacle, and spending time in prayer there. That too, he felt very, very strongly. He spent moments maybe before Mass quietly, or afterwards quietly, or when he'd be passing by a church. For instance, sometimes there was an occasion where the C&SI church where he went to visit was closed. Well, he just did his prayers outside to Jesus in the Eucharist inside the church. But apart from that, all kinds of things, lovely things about poverty, about how we need to live a lifestyle that's careful of how we spend. It's not that he was miserly, but recognizing that sometimes we might go. There's a lovely story he tells, being in a shop with his mother, and she sees a fantastic brand of sun cream, but it would have cost €50. And this isn't even 15 years ago. And he kind of says to his mum, do you actually need that brand? And his mother took it from him that, we need to be careful the purchases we make. And another element was, of course, he read the newspapers. His father gave him the newspapers every day. So he was very aware of the world situation. And one of the areas he was aware of was the climate crisis. And he was very practical. If he was going to the beach, for instance, on holidays, and the beach guard was maybe picking up some of the litter, he'd go off and help pick up the litter and tidy things up. He had a sense of, we need to care for the planet as well.
There's a section there towards the end of your book there, chapter 16, always remember you too can become a saint. And you asked the question, you said, as we conclude the conversation together, is there one thing you'd highlight for me? And I love his answer. He said, we only have one life. It's worth spending it well. I always believe that whatever point of view you look, life is always fantastic. Life is a precious gift. God has written for each one of us a unique and an unrepeatable story. Isn't that typical of his thinking, I suppose?
Very much so. He did have the sense of the giftedness of life, and that we need to use it well and make a gift of it. And that is a wonderful point in him, with a recognition that we don't always have life easy. There are sufferings, and he was strong on that we need to unite our sufferings with those of Jesus and be able to let Jesus transform the suffering in our lives. That was very much in him as well. Recognizing that we learn from Jesus. Jesus tells us to learn from him, and that we do that by looking at him, thinking about him. They had a lovely practice as well of just taking a short section of the gospel and try to put it into practice, remember it during the daytime. So that was a lovely feature. He did believe that the gospel could help transform your mind, and he tried to live that as well.
As young as what he was, he still had this thinking. He's buried, of course, in Assisi in Italy, and I assume if people want to go there, that's possible for them to visit his grave?
Yes, very much so. The city of a town of Assisi really became his preferred town. He was living in Milan, but they visited Assisi very often. Eventually, his parents even bought a house in Assisi. He absolutely loved going there for a number of reasons. The beauty, of course, the beautiful place in Umbria, and he loved the beauty of the fields and liked walking, contemplating in the fields. But he had a great admiration for St. Francis, of course. St. Francis, of course, the whole love of Francis for living poverty, but also living care of creation. And he admired very much St. Francis's love of the Eucharist. So for him, he said the C&SI was the place where he was happiest in life, and he wanted to be buried there.
And of course, he died in 2006 at the age of 15. Shane, have you got a thought there you want to maybe share with us? Or?
Yeah, no, I was just on the point around the C&SI as well. I was actually in a C&SI myself in October, and it's an interesting one. So Carlo is in the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore, which is almost halfway between the big basilica for St. Francis and the church where St. Clare is. So it's a nice kind of, for people that are visiting a C&SI, it's a stop on the route between the two other great saints, medieval saints of the church associated with a C&SI. But it's also interesting, of course, with the canonization, the number of people that are attending or visiting the church, it has obviously quite dramatically increased over the last number of weeks, and it's not a very big church. The Maria Maggiore, it's not a huge church, and Carlo's remains are over to the right hand side as you go in the door. So they're going to have they're going to have some crowd control things to take into consideration in terms of it. But of course, the other side of it is if you visit a C&SI as well. So Carlo himself is in Santa Maria Maggiore, but his primary relics aside from his remains, which is his heart, is at the Cathedral of San Rufio, or Rufio, I think is how you pronounce the name, which is the cathedral of Assisi itself. So you have a couple of spots there if you go and the crowd is a bit much, depending what the situation is.
Yeah, thanks for that, indeed, Shane. And one of the quotes that I liked about Carlo, just as we finish up this one, to always be close to Jesus, that's my plan. Isn't that a lovely...
Really, really wonderful, that. And he said that very early in life. So it's extraordinary how, in a certain sense, you can say, yes, we become saints, but in a way, there's a way we to always remember it's God that makes the saint. And you could see with that desire in his heart, God fulfilled it.
And of course, just to finish off again, this particular weekend, this particular celebration has also been included in this Jubilee of Teenagers taking place, where I believe there's teenagers from all over the world going through the Holy Door, etc., etc., etc. And of course, you would have roamed there recently, Bishop, with our diocese on a pilgrimage for the Year of Hope.
Indeed, we had a wonderful pilgrimage here from the Diocese of Limerick, 60 people from across the whole diocese, and it was wonderful in all kinds of ways, but in particular, we were there the weekend when Pope Francis came out of hospital, out of the Gemelli Hospital. We asked our tour guide, could we get our bus arranged to bring us there? We didn't know, would we be allowed in, what would happen, but we got there, we got to the gate, we got right up in front of the balcony where the Pope appeared, and it just was such an emotionally charged moment for the pilgrims. Everyone was really, really delighted. It was the high point, undoubtedly. He gave us a simple blessing, couldn't raise his hand that much, but gave a beautiful little simple blessing. And some of the pilgrims, I've met them since we came home, they've said to me that they have extended that blessing to many people since then. So that's just lovely to think about that. So it was a great pilgrimage. We went through the 4 holy doors and done very well. For instance, the Holy Door of St. Peter's, they have a pathway just for the pilgrims who come and who have booked in advance, so that it's very recollected and prayerful, and that you approach the Holy Door as a group together. And then we did the same in the other basilicas. So they were very prayerful moments, and we were very conscious of remembering people at home. Our loved ones, people that asked for prayers, those who are sick, those dying, difficulties. So people in our parishes and our dioceses were very much in our hearts throughout the days.
Lovely. And so just to finish off there, your book, it's entitled In Conversation with Saint Carlo Acutis. It's published by the New City Press.
That's right. You see, press of publishers. St. Paul's here in Ireland are distributing it as well, and I know it's available online as well for some people. I think also the Augustinians in Limerick have it on sale.
Very good. Bishop Brendan,
others too.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. And maybe an appropriate piece of music to play as we leave this interview. It's from the World Youth Day in Rome in the year 2000, and it's entitled Go Make a Difference. So until next time we speak, thanks a lot indeed, and enjoy the rest of the Easter season. God bless now.
Difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. We are the salt of the earth, come to let the people see the love of God in you and me. We are the light of the world, not to be hidden but be seen. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. We are the hands of Christ, reaching out to those in need. The face of God for all to see. We are the spirit of hope, we are the voice of peace. So go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. So let your love shine on, let it shine for all to see. Go make a difference in the world. And the Spirit of Christ will be with us as we go. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference, we can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world.